And you can tell a lot it's taken from PT and Silent Hill 2. When we talk about more realistic stories in terms of them hitting much closer to home. I think the other aspect that it comes on with is the big villain per se. We're obviously all very familiar with Pyramid Head, one of the most iconic villains in video game lore. But in this one they had, I think it was like Cherry Blossom Head. It's literally called that or something. But I liked the idea of it. I just think the difference between Silent Hill 2, it was Pyramid Head, and this one is again a little bit of the introduction. You instantly run from this character. You never really see it doing anything except chasing you, and you can't really view it for too long. And because like the representation of the Cherry Blossom comes from that of one of the girls' art per se, right? But cherry blossoms aren't necessarily a disturbing thing. Now we've seen that of Flowers and Overgrown turn into something more horrific in terms of that of Last of Us, and I think it was called Annihilation. It was a Netflix film with the girl who played Jane Foster from Thor. Please put her name in the comments, as I've completely forgotten. But yeah, starring her, so we've seen it go in a much more horrific way and manner, right? This one, compared to Pyramid Head, when you first see Pyramid Head, which is kind of committing, again, a very unspeakable act on another monster, this one doesn't have that much of an impact, right? Like, if it was the bully itself, I think that would have been a bit more interesting. It doesn't kill you as soon as it touches you, but maybe it bullies you per se. Like, it's when it's chasing you, it's saying, calling you names, getting closer, right? For it. Maybe it is, I mean, there's other forms of bullying, you know, like a big American stereotype in the films is obviously that of swirlies or wedgies. And you're probably not going to necessarily do that because, again, that's more of a male bullying than a female. But there's definitely things we can do with that for it. So I think, although it has a very similar iconic villain per se, it doesn't necessarily deliver on it. And I think that's, again, another thing that's worth looking at, is it's taken the inspirations, but it's not made it its own. Now, it's hard to do that. I honestly don't know if picking something like Pyramid Head is the right move. I don't think it's a bad move per se, but it's more of when you've got such an iconic character and you're trying to do something similar, especially such passionate fans of any fan base, it can be hard where people don't feel it as a gimmick, being a rip-off in other ways. So again, what could you have done to spice that up, I think, is a really fascinating question. The other second thing for it was that of, to me anyway, was that, like I said, we talked about first person similar to PT. Now, PT is very much a masterclass in its own right, like Jesus Christ. I think I did a whole episode, no, maybe I didn't. But I remember playing it, I remember being just blown away by it, and it has definitely made me go, if I was ever in a creative director position for, say, something like E3 sadly gone, but whatever the next big conference where all trailers are released. I don't know if I'd do a trailer. I'd probably try do something like PT. Now again, it comes at a much, much bigger cost, and it also could cause a lot of thrown away work. But I think the impact of it showed how important. We talked about Silent Hill 2 kind of suffering from a lot of people assuming, never assume, because you make an ass of you and me. Remember that one, kids. But from that, you can kind of get the element of actually what is the game, right? And I think that's a really important one for it. So yeah, I think with it being a first person, it definitely kind of lent into it. But I will say, I think the level design, because you're kind of re-exploring the same space, it didn't have enough of a local landmarks or helping with the mental map. Now you can argue you don't need that because it's a horror game, so it's kind of like The Shining. When you actually look at The Shining's hotel, it doesn't make any architectural sense, and that's part of the reason, is to throw you off so you can't really connect things, or if you do connect them, it doesn't make sense. And it's kind of that more uncanny valley, and I don't mean in terms of facial features, I mean it more in the sense of, like, this looks like a place, but it's not. Like, this room is a room, but we can make something look like it, but it's not. You know what I mean? I hope you know what I mean. But I think that is, again, just something where the level design could have benefited from a bit more of a deeper dive with it. Either leaning into the disconnection or the distortion each time you visit it. There are some elements of it, but it's not as deep as I would have. Again, it's easy for me to say this when I am here on the sidelines not working on the project. Because we mentioned earlier that it's a short game. I imagine the budget was really tight. Same with the delivery deadlines as well. There is some great interview with the creators, developers. There's a good one on the level design for it, which I just recommend for it. The design director, level design director, seems like she's a huge fan of Silent Hill and very, very passionate about level design as well. So a huge amount of respect. As I said though, it would be interesting to see what's the right call on it, right? Like PT's horror is that of the constant loop. No matter what, you're not making progress. Silent Hill 2 is like the warping of a space that you think you know, and it's no longer that space. Or again, as we talked about, it looks like the space, but actually isn't. I think that's an interesting one for it.